In this episode,
when people get into real estate or think about doing real estate, they're like, oh, I get to choose my own hours.
No.
You are at the mercy of your clients.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Welcome to the Subject Free Podcast. The unfiltered real estate podcast where four agents share real life stories from their careers in the crazy world of real estate. Now welcome Alan, Viv, Matt, and Adam.
Welcome, guys. Thank you for coming on the show.
Yay! Very excited. This is our inaugural podcast, so we'll see how this goes, but we're all very excited to do this.
Yeah, I think this is going to be fun. So I'm Alan Calimbas. I am a realtor in Vancouver, and I have Van City for Sale as my business.
And I am Adam Graham. I am also a realtor in Vancouver. You can find me at vancouveradam.re on the Instagram. I like to say that's my business card, so that's where you can find me.
I am Vivian Yu. I am also a real estate agent in Vancouver. My team is Keys and Castle, and we've been in operation for about 8 years now.
Killing it for 8 years.
And I'm Matt Cain. I'm a realtor from way out in the boonies in Langley. YourFraserValleyHome.com.
Nice.
Before we get into it, I want to actually ask Viv a question. And Keys and Castle, I think that's new because I don't think I've heard that. So how did you go about naming your team? Because I like the name. That's a very unique name, but I probably take me hours, if not days, if not years, to be happy and settle on a name.
You know what? Funny enough, I hired this marketing company that did it for Disney, UFC. They did branding for Coca-Cola, and I was like, you know what? Take me on as a client.
See, this is what happens when you're super successful.
Yeah.
You have the money.
That is not true.
I mean, are you kidding me right now? They had Netflix.
Yeah.
And they did surveys, they did study groups, they did everything with our clientele or our previous clientele, and that's the name that came out after I think 3-4 months.
Nice. 3 and 4 months.
Yeah.
Wow. So they kept billing you for 3 to 4 months.
That's correct.
For the new agents out there, this is usually cost prohibitive to begin with.
Yeah.
I wouldn't suggest starting with that.
No,
They treated me like Coca-Cola. Yes.
So what were the other ones that you turned down? Can you tell us those?
You know what? I'll have to think about that. I don't quite remember.
Don't say it online. People can find it and
That's
steal it,
true.
right?
That's true.
Yeah.
Keys and Castle.
Nice try, Adam.
I like it.
Yeah, way
Nice
to go,
try.
Adam.
Yeah. I like it.
No, see, I mean, that's amazing. And if you have the funds to do something like that, for sure. For someone like me, I just was looking and to see which domains weren't taken.
Right.
I'm going, okay, that's taken. This is taken. This is taken. Fuck. What am I going to do? Oh, if I put the number 4 in there.
6969.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, your specialty.
Reminds me of the old Hotmail days when everybody started their email accounts out with, or ended it with 69.
Isn't it great when you get a baby boomer client?
Yeah.
A lady, and she still got Susie Sunshine 69 at hotmail.com for email address for the DocuSign.
You always get so excited. You're like, ooh, this is a client maybe I can meet at night.
She used to party.
Yeah, but then after, here comes a 60-year-old Ruthie.
So if you can already tell, this podcast that we're starting off is going to be a window into the life of realtors, how realtors talk, how they behave, and
Really, it's just Alan.
Really, yeah, definitely. And just kind of give you a general sense of what goes on in the business, kind of a behind the scenes look at being a realtor. If you've ever been interested in being a realtor, or even if you're a realtor right now and just kind of want to listen to people talk about the business and kind of maybe even commiserate a little bit, that's what this podcast is going to be about. It's going to be super informal. It's going to be super fun. We're going to keep it light, casual, and hopefully entertaining as well too. So that's why we're doing this, and I think we got the right cast to be able to do it.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, we got some heavy hitters.
Yeah.
We got some personalities.
The heaviest hitter.
Heaviest hitter of them all. And then we have Matt.
So Matt, maybe you can start us off and let's kind of get to know each other and how we came to this point here, because we all come from very diverse backgrounds, and I think that's a great thing about real estate is that there's not one cookie cutter realtor. I think everybody thinks that like a realtor should have a certain personality and they should be like a certain type. And what
Phil Dunphy.
Yeah, Phil Dunphy, exactly. And what I've learned is like there's so many different ways of being in real estate and being successful in real estate that there's no like one personality. So maybe at this introduction we can kind of talk about like where we came from, why we're in real estate, and like kind of what we do that we think is, you know, different and special versus our other colleagues. So Matt, maybe you can start us off. How did you get here? Why are you in real estate?
Well, it's been a wild ride. No, I mean, you don't grow up. Most people don't anyways, dreaming of being a realtor. But I got into the sports betting industry, and I was in that for a long time. And I got to the point where it was very lonely, really, because everything was done online. And so there was no real interpersonal connection. Everything, at that point, Zoom wasn't a thing, but it was Skype. And had a couple of friends locally here in Langley, and one of them had gotten his real estate license, Jamie.
Jamie from the Property Twins.
Yes, the famous Property Twins.
Free plug.
He'd already had his license for a couple of years, and
Edith Haven.
Hey?
Edith Haven.
Yeah, we'll continue to plug.
Another plug. Good Lord.
Sorry.
He suggested I go get my license. His brother was in the process of getting his at that point, so that they could kind of start the team. And I came on just shortly after his brother Chris did, and that was back in 2017.
Okay.
So Chris and I were actually in the same class because we were taking our.
Yes.
Our,
Well, Alan and the twins go back a long ways.
Gotcha.
And we were a team for since then. Recently left the team. Got a couple other projects on the go, and so joined Real, but still very close with the boys.
That's pretty unique. Like I don't know anybody in sports betting, and not just like, you know, in it, but making a living out of it every single day. Is there overlap between being a realtor and being in that industry, or is it completely separate?
I mean, so I guess some people could. I'm not that kind of person per se. So, you know, I when I'm on to something, I like to focus on it. And so for me, there wasn't any kind of like halfway in, halfway out type of thing at that point anyway. So, no, I just kind of threw myself into it and walked away. I was never obsessed with it. Mm-hmm. You know, I did it. I was good at it, but it was never an obsession. It was never, you know, see myself 30 years from now still doing the same thing.
Did you ever take someone for their shirt and their business and everything?
No. I was in a different part of the business where it was basically analysis for people rather than I wasn't a bookie or anything like that.
I used to do something
That's less
similar.
exciting.
Yeah. I used to do something similar. I'll get to that later, but I ended up taking somebody's business away from them because they spent all their money with me.
What? So you were a bookie?
I'll get to it later, but let's focus on the beautiful man.
Do you have a different name at this point? Are you in the witness protection program? It's this
I did have a different name.
nefarious.
Okay, so you would do analysis.
Yeah, basically act as like a broker. So I guess there was some overlap there.
Yeah.
It's like that is a bookie.
Advisor for
Okay.
people with money that bet a lot, and
Cool.
I could put in the work and do that. And
So wait, so-
manage their sports bet investments basically.
So with
Okay.
this, like all the stuff you've learned with your analytics and sports betting, do you bet now that it's legal out there and like everybody does it, and do you win a crap ton of money?
No, because
That's not the
when
answer I
you're
wanted.
doing it, you never. Yeah, no, it's not the exciting answer. When you're doing it, you don't bet for yourself. That's like the number one rule. You don't bet for yourself.
So it's like a drug dealer. You don't sample your product. to
Yeah,
start with.
don't get high on your own supply.
Yeah.
Wait,
Well, no,
which drug
'cause-
dealers do you know?
Yeah.
Because if you do, then you've got a personal stake in it, and it can alter your motivations, your thinking behind things if you're using other people's money at the same time. You know, if I think, I might not just look at it objectively. I'm going, well, I've got my money in here, so I hope this happens. It's, it's better to be completely objective.
As much as it's like it's different, it sounds like there's a lot of strategy involved, which really in real estate, when you're especially in a negotiation, there's a lot of strategy involved with that. So I can imagine that you'd have to kind of hone a lot of similar skills, real estate versus.
Probably the analytics
Yeah.
I found has been the most helpful. You know, being able to break down a lot of different variables going into a game, same as going into a property, you know, and weighing one against the other and coming up with a number at the end of it.
Yeah, because even like, I mean, with real estate, there's a quantitative, which is the numbers, which is the analytics, and obviously there's a qualitative, which is like getting involved with people and relationships and building rapport, especially if you're in a multiple offer situation and you're like, you know, you're one of 8 offers, and why would they, you know, want to work with you versus the other realtor? Like there's, you know,
Blackmail.
yeah. I mean, there's a whole host of different strategies, but the analytics also is important in real estate as well.
Going into it, yeah.
Going into it, yeah. What about you, Viv? What's
What
your
about
story? What's your why into real estate?
What happened
Well-
before you got the keys and castle?
Yeah.
Well, you know what? I was actually in banking before. I was a commercial associate. I was with National Bank. And at that point I got recruited to work for them. I got poached to work for them after I worked for the UN for a bit.
Or for the US
And yeah, but that was a complete like very, very relaxed.
Yeah, I know.
That's the international UN, not the ones from Abbotsford, right?
Yeah. Very different. Very different.
I was an intern there, and really, if you're thinking like, oh, you know, government organizations, people there are very relaxed. They don't do very much. Now think intergovernmental organizations. No one knows what's going on. Everyone's on coffee breaks. They come in late. They go, you know, to lunch
Sounds
after.
like the city of Vancouver.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, you know, more or less. So there was no drive behind what people did at the UN. But anyways, I worked at the bank for a little bit. And at that point, I think they were trying to retain employees. So they had this incentive program saying, you know what, study anything you want to study and we'll pay for it. And at that point in time, I was the only one with a marketing degree and everyone had like a finance degree. And I was like, well, I don't want to do another 4 years of this just to get to where you guys are. So what can I do to be like, probably have a leg up? And that wouldn't take 4 years. So I decided to do like real estate because that's all we were involved in, really.
Horrible decision.
Yeah.
Horrible.
Really hasn't worked that well.
Horrible. And then during class time, I was the only one who didn't pick out a brokerage because I was like, oh, I'm not really, like, this is not what I was going to do. I was going to go back to the bank. So at that point, I still had no idea who I was going to join or where I was going to hang my license. I didn't even think I needed to hang my license. And then the bank was like, oh, you're done your course? Oh, now we have to pay you? Oh, sign here for another 2 years and no one will pay you.
No way.
What?
So I was like, you know what? No, that's not going to happen. Wow. So I left.
So they wanted you to sign a 2-year contract because you got a
Yeah.
real estate license at the bank?
Yeah, they're just like, oh, we forgot to mention for us to pay
No way.
this class that you did.
Yeah.
You need to sign on a 2-year contract,
No way.
another 2-year contract. And I was like, it's okay. I'll suck it up.
I mean, because the licensing to pay, like, I don't know what it is now, but let's just call it like a couple grand
Yeah.
through, right? So to sign your life away for 2 years
Yeah.
because they paid a couple grand for your licensing. It's crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's crazy. So you then had to pick a brokerage at that point, and you just said, all right, fuck it. I'm going full on into real estate now and
Pretty
this is now my
much.
career.
Yeah.
Okay. So what did you do the beginning days to kind of, cut your teeth and get going?
Well, in the beginning, I interviewed a bunch of brokerages. And then in class, this like little Asian guy came up to me and it's like very nice, but kind of weird.
Yeah.
And he's like, hey, you didn't pick your brokerage yet? Look at all this information that I got from this brokerage that I'm joining. It's called Oakwin. And I was like, oh, okay. Well, can I take this? He's like, sure. And let me introduce you to like Morgan and Michael. Yeah. And so that's how I picked Oakwin in the end.
Is this guy still in real estate?
Yes, he is. Yes. He's a very, very nice guy. And yeah, he is still in real estate. His entire family is in real estate, actually.
Oh.
Yeah.
Are you going to say a name?
I don't know if he wants to be mentioned.
Yeah, fair enough.
But
Fair
yeah.
enough.
but it was a lot of just door knocking, cold calling, flyering where you weren't supposed to. Yeah, a lot of that, just grunt work. Honestly, there was no success like recipe. It was just a lot of crap.
Just hustle.
Just, yeah.
I mean, that's why it's so difficult. And I don't know about you guys, but I talk to realtors that are getting into the business quite a bit. And, it's, well, I'm going to do a little bit of this, and then I'll do my license, and I'll learn slowly. And it's like, yeah, not really. Like, I've told people, like, just either you're going to be in it or you're not going to be in it. There's no, like, kind of learning it off to the side as you're making your money, because at the end of the day, it's way easier just to be in a 9-to-5 job, make a certain amount of money, go up the corporate ladder and just do that, versus, especially at the beginning when it's all grunt work, when it's all heavy lifting, doing that. You run out of patience and money a lot of the times if you're doing it part-time, right?
Yeah.
And especially going into it, part-time is the hardest. Like, you can't.
Yeah.
As you grow and you've been in it a while, then you start to diversify because more opportunities open up.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
if you try and half-ass it off the start,
No.
good luck.
No,
Yeah.
good luck. And the costs are prohibited to do that as well, too. Because, I mean, if you're at a brokerage, that we were at where it's monthly cost, that's great. But at the beginning, for the first probably 3 to 6 months easily, you're not seeing a paycheck. So you've got, $700 going out the door every month, plus all your other expenses. It's just not it's not conducive to that.
I mean, if there was OnlyFans when I first started,
Yeah, I mean, you would have been fine.
would have been good.
It would have been good. Well, and that leads us to your story, Alan.
Yeah, so my story. So, I mean, I've had a lot of different things that I've been doing. So, music, I worked with some big artists at a management company. But before I got into real estate, I was actually the GM of a nightclub in Vancouver.
Surprise!
So, I mean, you work a lot of hours. Like, you work until like 7 a.m. and then you're back there at noon. And you're just constantly working. And the girl I was with at that time she was getting pretty fed up because I would always be gone. I'd always be gone. So what we did is she wanted a dog really bad because she was lonely. Adopted a dog. Rescued a dog. And then this dog had such bad separation anxiety and was abused and et cetera, that we couldn't leave the dog alone. Like, we'd get calls from the neighbors, I think someone's torturing your dog.
Really?
Because the dog would be crying in like 18 different frequencies.
Oh.
So the solution was to get another dog, and that dog was the therapy dog for this dog. Well, a few months later, everything's going the same. I'm working 77, 80-hour weeks. I come home from work one night at like 6:30 in the morning, and the dogs are waiting by the door, and the girl is gone, and all her shit's gone too.
No.
Yeah. So at that point in time, I'm like, I need to change my life because I rescued these dogs. I'm not abandoning them now. And I'm like, what can I do? I always thought about real estate. I always loved going into presentation centers. I loved going into open houses. So I'm like, you know what? Fuck, let's do it. Let's get out of this. I'm like, my liver's hurting.
That nightclub life has a shelf life.
It does.
It does,
Yeah.
for sure. And it was at the point where I was just drinking every single day. And on your days off, they tell you it's not really a day off. You have to go out and drink and meet people, right? So it's like 7 days a week, drinking all the time. And like, I tried doing a night sober, working, and I lasted half an hour because I wanted to kill everybody in there.
Yeah.
So you can't do it sober.
No.
So after that happened, I made the decision. I'm like, okay, I'm going to get my real estate license. I'm going to really work towards this. Got it, and then never looked back. So.
And now you work 100 hours.
And drink more. And still drink 7 days a week.
Yeah, oh, geez. But at least I get to cuddle with my dogs the whole time.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
So it was, that was the turning point for sure. I mean, like, I love being around people. It made sense.
Yeah.
I mean, some of my first and best customers and clients were people who bought tables at the club. And, like, I remember this one group. It was a bunch of guys. They spent a lot of money. Then all of a sudden they're like, hey, we want some girls at our table. I'm like, perfect. I know the guys at the strip club. I walked out, went to the strip club, grabbed some girls from there. Some of the girls who already finished all their dances, brought them over because the GM let me. And then after they became clients, and then they were one of the first people I sold to, and I've sold like 4 properties to.
different.
Yeah, I mean, I'll speak for Alan a little bit on this. Like, Alan's got a little bit of a different business model, but that's
clientele.
Yeah, his clientele is very different, I think, than the families that we may all deal with.
Yep.
But that's kind of the point of this too, is that there's no one way, there's no one personality, there's no cookie cutter business, and that's the beautiful thing about this business is that you can be successful no matter who you are if you love the business. And I remember my mom's in the business, and she said, when I was getting into it, and I'll get to my story in a second, she said it's not a job, it's a lifestyle. And that is like still in my mind of like every time that you're answering a call on Saturday night, or you're doing an offer like with friends out on your laptop, it's like this is the life that you have. There's a lot of, I think, especially now with like Netflix and all the reality shows, there's a lot of like great things that you see.
Reality.
Yeah, quote unquote reality. There's a lot of great things that you see, but then there are a lot of things that you don't see, which is the hustle at the beginning, the grind, the things that you miss, or maybe your mind's not even mentally there, right? So it's such a diverse business. It's a beautiful, great business, but it's a diverse one, and there's just no one way to do it.
And what I think people don't realize is that, I mean, when people get into real estate or think about doing real estate, they're like, oh, I get to choose my own hours.
No.
You are at the mercy of your clients.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right? Like, I can't tell you how many times I've sat down for dinner with my wife and my phone goes off. I'm like, if I don't pick this up, there's 14,000 other realtors who will.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And you always have to protect your business that way because they really can go off to anybody else.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I mean, they won't get the same experience, but I mean, if someone needs something now, there's 14,000 other realtors they can go to get it now.
Yeah, and you've got to look at what normal people's days are. They get up, if they have kids, they get the kids ready, they go to school or they go to their work, 9 to 5, then they get home, take care of the kids, make dinner. They settle down at like 7, 8, 9, 10 o'clock at night. And what do they do at that point? That's when they flip open the laptop, go and scroll the, MLS, go and scroll their notifications for the day, and that's when they contact you. So I know between the hours of like 8 o'clock and 10 o'clock, I'm going to get requests all the time of like, have you seen this? Can you set up this appointment? All that stuff.
It's so funny. I saw a skit on SNL and they were saying like the new Pornhub was Zillow. And
Zillow,
you see
yeah.
all these people just in lingerie looking at houses. Oh yeah, big. It's so big. And
Totally.
it shows the house.
Totally.
It's totally what they do, right? They get off work, whatever their job is, and after they do the dreaming.
Yeah.
And I mean, they can do that soon on a app that's
Coming to you.
Yeah, coming to you
Coming
soon.
We'll save that for another episode.
Yeah, we'll
Sounds
save
good.
that for another episode.
But I think that's a symptom too of being in the type of market that we're in the Lower Mainland generally, where everything is time sensitive.
Yeah.
Because it's so competitive for the clients too. It's
Yeah.
competitive for the homes.
Yeah.
Whereas in other markets maybe that aren't as busy, you get to drag out things over a few
Yeah.
days. If you've got an offer in, you're probably going to leave it open for 3 days.
Yeah.
And you can work on it during business hours and pick it back up again tomorrow at 9 a.m.
Yeah.
Whereas, if you're multiple offers here, your offer goes in at 4 o'clock. It's getting decided by 10 o'clock at night.
Yeah, and that's an interesting point too that you make is that, I mean, you talk to a lot of other realtors in other markets and 30 days is a very hot market for them. For us, days on market, it doesn't reach those 7 days if you don't put an offer deadline.
Yeah.
It could go in 1,
go
2,
one
3,
day,
like,
yeah.
it's crazy.
Well, how many times have you been when you've written an offer? Maybe it's been not a multiple offer situation or an offer date situation, and that you wrote it the next day because the client wanted to think about it and they weren't totally sure,
And it was gone.
and it was either gone or all of a sudden you're in a multiple offer situation where if you wrote it 24 hours before, that other offer wouldn't have come in, and now all of a sudden your price went from 900,000 to 950 because you just you thought about it for a night.
I think education at that point, like I always tell my clients, listen, we're in a hot market. This just came on the market. It has no offer deadline. Let's get in as quickly as we can because every second that we wait, another realtor's going to jump in and then you go into a multiple.
Yeah.
And then you're skyrocketing final
Yeah.
sale price.
Was that worth it?
Exactly.
Yeah.
I know you want to think about it.
Yeah.
It's great to think about it, but this market right now, sometimes you can't think about it. You have to go by feeling.
Yeah.
You go in there, it feels like home. All right, let's make it your home.
And trust too, right? Like it's not like we're trying to rush you and just to make money or make a
We're actually
commission.
trying to save you
We're
money.
actually trying to save you money by saying, do this now. You can think about it even during the negotiation period, because that will take, like 8 hours or so, depending on how quick the other party gets back to you. Like, get in now, start now, and start the process, because you don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. And I've seen it where, like, we personally bought a property, and we bought it sight unseen, which would probably most people, if they were my client, they wouldn't
their
do.
mind.
Yeah, they'd be like, what? Like, there's no way. We didn't even see the property. And we bought it because I knew the market was changing so quickly. And when we went up and we went to see it during the inspection, and the realtor, when we got up there, said, since you guys bought it, I've had like 8 calls that wanted to see it and or put an offer in on it.
Yeah.
And if we waited from the Tuesday to the Saturday, the price would have been $150,000.
So in that situation, Adam, how long of lead time do you give for expiry?
In that situation, I mean, it depends on what time of day that I'm offering. So if it's like at night, then I may give them until the morning, at like 10, 11 o'clock, because I'm pretty sure that nobody's coming in, at midnight.
Yeah.
If it's during the day, then I'll give them maybe until 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock, hours. The clients may be getting off of work at 5. They have like an hour and a half to kind of think about it, like depending on the situation. But like, you want to shore that up. And that's also too, you have to put in that good offer, right? Where they're not like, oh, fuck, well, I don't really want to take this. So
Yeah.
I'll get back to it on my own time.
It has to be something that appeals to them.
Appeals to them.
Appeals to
It's
them,
like-
and I mean, you're going to end up somewhere there anyways if you're negotiating.
Yeah.
Right? So that's
Yeah.
what I always tell my clients is, listen, the closer we are to your max price with as little wiggle room as possible,
Yeah.
you have a better chance of getting a quick response.
Yeah. Yeah. And that, so, I mean, again, it comes down to trust, because at the end of the day, it will feel to the client like you're rushing them to try to get a deal done. What you're trying to do is save them a bunch of money. And this business, whether it be dealing with your clients or dealing with another realtor, is really about the trust of working with somebody.
And I think people eventually get there. Sorry, we're talking a lot, but people eventually get there because, I mean, I've had a client, first time working with him, I met him at an open house. And the guy's a young guy with quite a bit of money. So we were looking at all these properties, and I kept telling him that same thing over and over. This is a hot segment of the market. We got to go. He wanted to do his own thing. And then we ended up losing 1, 2, 3. Then finally he's like, I trust you, just do whatever you want.
Yeah.
And then we got it right away.
Yeah.
Sometimes they have to lose a few.
They have to
Yeah.
lose a few, and that's learning for them. Then they
They
start
call
to
it a
trust you.
throwaway.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Don't worry, it's a throwaway.
Yeah.
But then after that, they start referring you so many clients because they're like, this guy wasn't shitting me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And now
I should have listened to him.
Should have
Yeah.
listened to him. And then now they're like, okay, you should really trust this guy because I didn't at first. That's what they'll say to their friends. But then I could have won this.
Yeah.
And it's got a lot to do with how, when they make, like you were saying, Adam, when they make the decision to go in on an offer, if in a multiple offer situation, if they wait until the day of, you're toast.
Yeah. Yeah. Totally.
Right?
I mean,
because
yeah.
if you're going to be up against subject-free offers.
Yeah.
And if you
Yeah.
still want to do it right and do due diligence.
Yeah.
And you're writing with subjects, well,
Yeah. Yeah.
you need to decide a few days before that you're going to do that so that your financing is done,
Yeah.
you have pre-inspection, everything, and you're set to go.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I think that's like it's hard to articulate that to people that don't live it every day, and that's even where an experienced realtor comes into account versus somebody that's not as experienced.
You just point to her than to me.
Experienced realtor versus somebody else.
Okay, Adam, you still haven't told us how you got into this.
Yeah, my story is so I was in finance for 10 years. I worked for a company, and I was what I thought was a part of a succession plan, and so I worked there from basically 28 until 30.
Really dating yourself.
I know. Yeah, damn it. And so I worked for this company, and long story short, because that could be a podcast on its own, but long story short, realized that the succession plan that I bought into wasn't really a succession plan. There was still a lot of hooks in the business, and it was a really difficult time and thing to go through because I was in my early 30s. I had thought I had been in that business for over 10 years and really kind of thought I had a path that I was
Logan
going.
Roy had promised you CEO.
and then shift.
I mean, maybe not to that scale of money involved, but yeah, it was really unfortunate, and it was a gut check for me, and I went through a lot of self-doubt and what am I doing, and you felt like you were behind because this career that you had was no longer the career. And then, I think as all of us, we are so emotionally tied and our identity is tied to what we do that then I felt like I didn't have like an identity after that.
You know what? That's a big thing though too. Like, I mean, once you reach a certain age, that happened to me once, a certain career ended, I kind of didn't know where I fit in, and I was all over the place, and I was a mess. I was like doing shit that I would never do. I was like not sleeping. I was like out of control.
Yeah,
because you just don't have your identity, right?
Yeah. It is. It's tough, and there was a lot of like self-reflection, and so long story short, at the end of the day, I sold whatever I had left in the business. I sold back to my quote-unquote business partner, and I was starting fresh again, pretty much. And I could have gone down the road of finance and then just try to build it up. And I had obviously contacts and colleagues in that business that I could have joined, but I was a little bit burned and jaded from the whole thing. And I thought, well, if I'm starting basically from scratch, what else would I do that I'm interested in? And so I interviewed with like tech companies, and I realized and this is the funny thing with realtors, sometimes they're like, oh, I can't do this anymore. Like, it's so difficult. And normally they're a little bit younger than me. And I'm always like, okay, well, what are you going to do? Like, what's the thing that, you want all the autonomy, the freedom, like you don't want to do, like be beholden to the client anymore. Like, do you think you go into the corporate world and there's not like responsibilities and bosses and like shit that you don't want to do? Like, grass ain't always greener on the other side. Trust me, I've looked, and I came back to being an entrepreneur by myself. So yeah, so I decided, I took a big leap, and I said, you know what? Fuck it, I'm going into real estate. I mean, let's face it, in Vancouver and Lower Mainland, real estate is king. It's probably our number one in business. And there's a lot about what I did in finance that transferred over to what being a realtor is. And I was my own boss over there. I got to be my own boss, and I got to really talk and look at a sexier product, which is real estate in Vancouver versus financial instruments, which are relatively boring, and marketing is like not this. I mean, a podcast about finance will probably be listened to by a small segment of people, and a podcast about real estate probably a lot bigger. So
we'll see.
Yeah, we'll see.
I don't know, Adam. When I think of other careers that you could have done, I'm like something in broadcasting your voice.
Yep.
Maybe a CSI agent.
Why do you think we're starting a podcast? Yeah, maybe a CSI agent. Yeah. I tried that out for an afternoon. I enjoyed it. So yeah, that's basically the same thing.
Didn't you do like commercials on the side for a little bit?
I did that as somebody approached me because I saw me doing videos, and they're like, you should do commercial work. So I was like,
commercial work.
Sure. Like what? Let's because I used to be in theater, and so I was like, sure, let's dust that skill off. And I was horrific at these commercial auditions. Like, it was like, it's not like in a natural environment. You go in, there's like casting directors everywhere. You're like auditioning for like a toy company where you're like literally like act surprised, and you're like, and I act surprised. Oh my God, I'm so surprised. Like, it's like totally not, natural for me, but I had fun with it. I would commentate on my Instagram through the whole thing about like what I was seeing and I took it not seriously because I felt bad because everybody in there was like, that was what they wanted their career to be, is like in, acting. And I was like a realtor that was like literally taking an hour out of the day to like have a little bit of fun and post a bit about it on Instagram about it. So I did book one gig, which was a gig for Children's Hospital, and I think I got paid $250, and they ended up using my hands. which is kind of explain. Yeah,
nice hands.
Yeah, it was like this. It was like I waited for the commercial to come out. Like I was giving a mom good news about her son's diagnosis. It was like this whole thing, and I was like, I can't wait. Like this is gonna go on Canuck broadcast. Like this is
you had a viewing party, didn't you?
Yeah, pretty much. I should have.
Families there.
Pretty much. And this was actually, they released it right around COVID, I think. So it was like, I was like super excited about it. And then you watch the whole commercial and you're like, oh, that was my head. Okay. And scene. Nice. Thanks. Thanks for the time. And I was up at 5 a.m. and it's one of those anyway, it was fun, but I don't do that anymore because
we're gonna edit this podcast so it's only Viv's hands.
That's a good idea. So anyway, so I did the whole thing. I mean, I decided let's just make a jump. I had a gut feeling. I kind of thought I'd bet on myself rather than trying to build somebody else's business. And I honestly, people ask me if I like this business, and I love this business. I think it's for all the stuff we all talk about and we share privately about the frustrations of dealing in this crazy, stupid market with these crazy prices and people that are involved. Because let's face it, there's a ton of crazy characters. There are. And we'll probably get into that in further podcasts. But this is I don't think, like I said, the grass is not always greener on the other side. And I've looked, and this is still if you can make it go in this, which is no guarantee, because I think 87% of people fail.
It's a meat grinder.
It is. Yeah. It is, and it's a gut check. So yeah,
I think the biggest thing that when I looked into doing this thing, I'm like, how hard do I actually work? And I know that I worked hard. I worked 80 hours a week. I'd do this, I'd do that, I'd do 8 things at once. I'm like, if I would have focused that on my business for my gain, how would that translate? So that's the way I looked at it before I went fully into it. I'm like, and I trust myself more than I trusted anybody else. Right. I know I'll eventually make the right decision.
Yeah.
But so
yeah. So now that we've kind of shared all of our stories and where we kind of came from, if you had to go back, if you were you could transport yourself back to your original self and you were going into it, what kind of advice would you give yourself right now coming into this business? And I'll start just because I'm throwing this question out, and I'll give you guys some time to think about it. So when I joined, I actually joined with my dad, and my dad was retired. He was not in real estate. Everybody thinks I joined my dad's business, but I did not. We actually joined together. Bless him, he took the exam with me. We went through the whole licensing course together, and we started completely on our own, fresh, 2 new rookies. He was 70 years old or 69 years old, and I was, younger than I am today. And so I started, and we just kind of made it work, as we all kind of do. But now that I've done interviews with other realtors and talked to other realtors, I think if I had to do it over again, I think because there's such a learning curve, I would probably try to join at the beginning a team that I felt was successful. And now hindsight's 20/20, but if I knew what to look for, and I wouldn't have known what to look for then, but if I knew what to look for, I think, joining a team like Vivian, you have a team, you can learn and leverage so much from a good agent. And that's not a guarantee that just because they have a team, they're a good agent, but you can leverage so much from a good agent that I think, cutting your teeth for the first year or 2 years to kind of learn their systems and learn what they do and learn how they grind. I think there's a lot of value in that for a new agent. So that's what the advice that I'd give myself. Viv, do you want to dovetail on that?
Sure. Actually, I didn't join a team for the longest time. I started my own, 1.5 years ago, but I probably still wouldn't join a team in hindsight. The one advice I'd give myself, though, is not to take things personally, because the people that you think will do business with you might not actually do business with you because you are so new and they just don't trust you yet, and it comes way later. But then when they don't do business with you, you get this awful feeling, and then you can't sleep, and, it's like, okay, what did I do wrong? And you might not have done anything wrong. it's just because they don't trust you.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I think I've had a few burns in the very beginning where, you know, you did everything right possibly, and then they're just like, yeah, so we're going to go with someone else. It's like, but why?
Yeah, for sure.
And that doesn't, like, that still happens. Like, I'll talk about myself, maybe not you, but it still happens. I still have people that, you know, that leave after a while, and who knows why, right? Like, you don't sometimes know why somebody chose some, you know, to work. I had a guy who was a client who everything went well with the transaction, everything's great, and then he listed with somebody else. And I said, you know, why did you pick somebody else? And he said, well, it just looked like they were more active in the business at the time, and I've become closer friends with them, so I chose them. And you have to learn just to be like, okay, it's not personal, you know, but it's
Sometimes a relative gets their license and feel like
No,
they
and
gotta go with
you
them.
know what I find too? Like, I mean, I've had the situation even recently, and it's like the advice that I give, I really think about the advice I give. So someone came up to me, I'll just give you a hypothetical because they'll probably watch this. But it's like they were wondering if it was, you know, they're seeing the media, it's so hot, the market's hot. Should I list my home? Should I put it on the market now? And I'm like, no, it's not hot for your, maybe if we wait a little bit more, then I think we can get to that, you know, multiple offer situation. But right now it's not.
right.
And then what ends up happening?
They list it.
They list it with somebody else
Yeah.
because they're like, oh, it sounded like you just didn't want to list it. I'm like, no.
Would I ever say no to money?
But that's the thing, though. I was giving my honest opinion, and like
Yeah.
I wanted her to, you know, save the time on market, or this person to save the time on market. And then what's happening now?
So it's a her. Got it. Okay.
Well, this happened with another client too recently, and I gave them a price per square foot where I think it would sell, and I said we can get past this benchmark, but it's going to be a few months because that portion of the market's not busy yet.
Right.
It's been on the market with another agent. It was like close to $2,000 per square foot. It's been sitting for 35 days now. They did a reduction. They're doing another reduction. I'm like,
That just looks bad now.
yeah. So I mean, I give them my honest opinion. I don't lie to them.
Yeah.
I'm not just going to take the listing and then
Yeah.
look foolish at a price point. I'm like, but I just give them honest opinion. And sometimes they want out of that property and they want to sell, but then they didn't hear what they wanted to hear from you. So you just
Yeah.
can't take it personally, right?
But it's tough. It's tough.
Yeah.
It's super tough. Matt, what about you? What advice?
Yeah, I don't know if this would be universal for everybody. You know, everybody approaches the business differently. But I think for me, looking back, I would have told myself to have the confidence to set boundaries earlier. You talked about
good
people
one.
being being at people's beck and call.
Yeah.
Boundaries.
and to not dance around things with people as much.
Yeah.
I'm giving them the same information at the end of the day, but not try and sugarcoat it and be like, just no bullshit. This is what I think.
Yeah.
You know, because you go into it, I think there's an idea that it's all salesy, that real estate's really salesy. The way I found it over the years, I'm not selling anything. I'm not a salesman.
Yeah.
I'm managing a transaction.
Yeah.
You already want to buy a house. I don't need to sell you on a house.
Yeah.
You know, if I've got the listing, well, you're listing your house.
Yeah.
Other people are going to come in and want to buy it.
Yeah.
So I'm here as a professional to manage that, and to just set those boundaries and just be kind of more matter of fact about, how you go about the business.
That's such good advice. Like I've been thinking about that more, and I was talking with somebody else about this, like how now I'm just more blunt, and I see myself becoming more and more blunt with people, because at the beginning, you'd be like, try to sugarcoat it, right?
Well, it's counterintuitive because you think that that's how you want, but the more you do that, the more people generally will walk all over you.
Yeah.
And they won't respect you.
Yeah.
Because they'll think, you're just saying whatever you can to get me to do what you wanted me to do. But if you're just like, no bullshit, no, I think you should do this.
Yeah.
You don't want to do it? Okay, fine, don't do it.
Yeah, and it comes off as confident too, right? And not wishy-washy.
Yeah.
When you just give them the brass tacks, and you're a big boy, big girl, you put on your big pants, and this is the news, and this is what I'm telling you.
But it is tough because it comes with experience. Because once you know your shit, you can do that.
Yeah.
When you're just starting out, you don't know the answer to a lot of things.
Yeah.
You don't know the answers to contract questions.
Yeah.
Or what's a dormer, or how do drain tiles work and things like that. And so you don't have the confidence to just go, that's that. You should call this guy.
Sexy word of the day, dormer.
And you might not be giving them the answer they're looking for, just like Alan had said.
For sure.
Yeah, that's great advice, and I think you only get that, like you said, with experience.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So then I would say it'll come.
Yeah.
If you stick with it, it'll come.
Yeah.
But keep it in mind, as you progress through the years.
Yeah, for sure.
If you can last.
Well, and that's it, right? Like some people don't even get to that.
Just burnout is the thing.
And you're just trying to save them time, right? At the end of the day, they're going to, as you said, they're going to get that information regardless. But if you're wishy-washy with it, you're just wasting everybody's time, including your own, and just come out, give them the info, and let them make the decision for themselves. But Alan, what about you? What advice would you give yourself?
I mean, I think I would give the advice to my younger self of just being myself more. You know what I mean? Because I started out being...
You weren't yourself? Wait,
I wasn't. I totally wasn't.
He was very successful at the start.
And then it just went...
And then it went down.
Once people got to know him.
Exactly.
And it went all downhill.
I think the biggest point was that I was trying to be everything to everybody and trying to be everybody's realtor.
Yeah.
And that way I was just being fake to a lot of people, right?
Yeah,
so
that's
I think
exactly what I was just saying.
Yeah, exactly. And it just it was counterproductive to now all the clients I get now are in the niche that I want them to be. I actually have fun with them. I go out with them all the time.
What niche is that, Alan?
It's a very sacred niche that I hold dear right here.
The adult entertainment.
Strippers need homes too.
So I mean, I think just really, knowing myself and being myself and enjoying the space that I'm in, it conveys to the client as, who you really are, right? And they can really trust that. When they can see past your facade of this fake personality, they don't trust you right away. So I think that's a big thing that I would teach myself. And then also I think, when I look back at the realtor that I was learning and he mentored me, it always blew my mind that he's like, oh, I actually haven't been on a listing appointment in 6 years. People just give it to me. And he does a lot of deals a year. And I'm like, how is this happening? It's because he's himself. He goes around telling stupid jokes, dad jokes, funny jokes, whatever, but he takes his clients out.
Yeah, that's maybe I can niche in on that market.
Yeah, and he's an amazing friend now. Love the guy. We worked together very briefly. I left because I thought there was something more like door knocking, doing this would be good for my business. It wasn't. It was terrible. And then after I was like, how does he get all this business? And I started being myself, and all of a sudden it's just started coming to me. So I think that's a valuable lesson, is that just don't fake who you are. Be who you are and excel in that area,
Yeah, and I think that goes back to our original thing of there's so many different personalities and types. And if you are true and authentic to who you are, those types of people want to work with you. Sure. And I'm sure you felt where you work with people that and I felt it, and you guys I'm sure felt it, you just don't jive. You don't you're always missing each other on the communication, whatever. And everything's kind of a struggle because you just don't connect. Yeah. And so at the beginning of your career, you're really just trying to get any business, right? I mean, you're
not giving that up at the beginning.
You're not giving that up at the beginning. I'll work through this and make this thing work. But as you get, more experience, and when you want to market yourselves more too, right? You want to market yourself to the people that you want to work with. You don't want to market, if you don't want to work with downsizers, then you don't want to market to those people, for sure, right? So you just learn who you are, what you do well, and hone in on that.
For sure. I totally agree.
So how do we feel about our first podcast, guys? Good job. Like we did an okay
time goes
job
fast.
Here?
I thought we would get more into the nitty-gritty.
Yeah, well, I mean, time goes fast,
Don't
but
worry,
I think
one step at a time.
Yeah, we'll wrap it up there. Does anybody have any final thoughts or words?
I thought that
Finish
was
off
good.
with Trash Talk with Viv?
Yeah, Trash Talk with Viv.
Trash Talk will be our next episode.
Canceled. Next day, Viv is
Real estate board canceled. Everything's canceled. Well, thanks for listening, guys. Anybody that listened to this to the end, thanks so much for listening. And we look forward to bringing you more real talk with the four of us.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yay.
Yay.
Thanks for listening to the Subject Free Podcast. Make sure you subscribe, follow, rate, and review. Until next episode, we hope you're going in subject free.